This is Things Police See, first-hand accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 3. In this episode, I interview retired California parole agent Miguel Lopez. Miguel went from state prison guard to parole agent to ending up on a fugitive apprehension team for the state. Some great stories, very interesting interview. I learned a lot during this interview. I didn't know too much about this branch of law enforcement. Very cool stuff. I think you guys are going to really love it. I want to say thank you to everybody who's been listening to the podcast and downloading, and everybody who left a rating and a review. That's a huge help. If you haven't done that and you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe, rate, and then leave a written review. That is so awesome if you can do that. Really appreciate it. If you're a law enforcement officer and you want to get a hold of the podcast, or you want to get a hold of me and maybe even come on the show, or if you just have some comments or anything you want to add, or anybody really, you don't have to be in law enforcement, anybody can write to this email and ask me a question. It's thingspolicesee@gmail.com. So that's thingspolicesee@gmail.com. Go ahead and write to me there. Without further ado, here's my interview with retired parole agent Miguel Lopez. How you doing, Miguel?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. You work for the state for how long?
02 to about 2015. So yeah, 13 years.
I'm excited for this interview because I don't have so much knowledge about what goes on with parole. I know I worked with them a little bit back in Massachusetts when I was a cop there, and you were part of a team that I got to see the Massachusetts counterpart in action, and it was they were pretty badass. Like if we had a guy in town who violated parole and the state wanted him back, they would send this certain group of guys to apprehend him. And it was nice to have them come and work with us because these guys, it was their specialty. And it's kind of like, it's almost like a state, like bounty hunter, right?
Yeah.
It's
very similar, yeah.
Very similar to that. So it's kind of it's a really cool position in law enforcement. So I'm excited to hear what it was like for you. Now, you started as a prison guard, right?
Yeah, started as a prison guard, correction officer in Lancaster State Prison in 02.
And Lancaster's kind of out in the desert.
Yeah, it's in Lancaster, California. California State Prison, Lancaster. Yeah, it's nothing much around there.
Okay. And Miguel, can you tell us about the first call, or I wouldn't say call, but a first response you had while working in the prison that really got your heart going, really gave you like a bit of an adrenaline dump? What was that experience?
Sure. I remember vividly, I was 5 weeks into the department, brand new correction officer, and I was working a housing unit where I was responsible for opening, closing all the doors, about 150 cell doors, all the inmates, along with opening the doors for all the staff coming in and out of the building. And it's a gun control position, so it's an elevated position. You have a Mini 14, and you had a 38 revolver.
You guys had revolvers even in the 2000s.
Yeah. Oh man, this is speed loaders and everything. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
It was a day, I guess a normal day in prison. My building had just got back from, what was it? Oh, they were actually just leaving, and they went to the chow hall to have their breakfast. So it was early. This is probably around 7 in the morning. And everybody's leaving, and pretty much the building is now empty. Another building is now walking, and all those inmates are walking on the same yard. Another building, like an adjacent building, is now walking all their inmates to the yard, through the yard to the cafeteria. And I hear like a loud alarm, which is the alarm for there's an incident, and the staff are the ones who sound this alarm. So something happened to where it triggered the alarm. The staff saw something. They hit the alarm for the yard to go down. And when I say the yard goes down, it means every inmate knows that whenever that alarm goes off, they have to hit the ground. They have to lay down.
Oh, really?
Because there's an incident. Yeah. And then that means that now you have correctional officers that are running somewhere, wherever that alarm is. There's a fight, there's an assault on staff, whatever it is, they have to get down, because now you got staff running in, and you don't want to. If you see an inmate standing, you assume that individual is not complying, and then force can be used against that person. But anyway,
Miguel, how often would you say this alarm goes off?
oh man, on a daily basis, I would say in an 8-hour shift, you're probably going to hear about 2 to 3.
Wow. Okay.
Some of those can be false alarms. Some of them can be righteous alarms, assault against on staff or other inmates, non-compliance, you name it. A fight breaks out on the yard. I mean, just everything. So the adjacent building, their inmates are walking to the yard, and two of these particular inmates ended up assaulting 2 staff members that were on the yard. And these 2 inmates, both of them had your makeshift weapons. They had like pens or some kind of sharp device that they sharpened. Some hard plastic they sharpened it to a point, and they ended up assaulting staff.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they got the 2 staff members pretty righteously. They got them both in the head and kind of scratched sliced their head a little bit, and a bunch of blood from these officers was dripping down. So
Wow.
my situation was, I was in the adjacent building, and I hear the alarm go off, and at that point I had nobody in the building, but I still had my Mini 14 on a sling. So as I go and I hear the alarm, I run back to the back window where I can now see the yard, and I can provide gun coverage. I see that these guys they pretty much just finished with the tussle with these officers, because it was quick, because they just went up to the officers, cut them up a little bit, assaulted them in the face, in the head, and then they complied. They got down, and that was it. So by the time I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, what is the engagement rules for prisoners and firearms? Like, when can you shoot someone? It's different in a prison, right?
It is. There is no warning shot. There is, you have to see that clear and present danger, that great bodily injury can result from what you're witnessing.
Okay.
So it's pretty much, I think it's a basic, standard use of force procedures that's established nationwide.
So you can't just shoot prisoners like willy-nilly. It's still a use of force. Like, you have to have that reasoning.
Absolutely, yes. That's definitely going to be scrutinized. We have our own internal investigation unit that reviews everything. Everything is done in great detail. So we can't just go out there shooting.
I just have this thing in my head where I think somebody told me along the way in my career that you could just shoot a prisoner if he was running away. And I never knew if that was true or not. But
you know what? In the state of California, it is true if they're escaping.
Okay, that's where I got that from.
Yeah. If they're escaping, then you are authorized to use that deadly force, because the threat is that individual is running into the public.
Right.
And I mean, who knows where he's going to go? He presents a clear and present danger to the community at that point. So yes, at that point, you can shoot. So all the state prisons in California, like this one in Lancaster, is a maximum security facility. So you have gun towers. I want to say they have about 8 to 9 gun towers that surrounds the prison.
Yep.
They also have an electrical fence that surrounds the inner perimeter. So not every single gun tower is manned. I want to say there's about 2 of those towers are manned, and those pretty much have to deal with transportation and armory issues and things like that. But that's pretty much what it comes to when you can use force against an inmate that's trying to escape.
Gotcha. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, dude.
No.
So you have these guys on the ground. They're complying.
Yes. As I run to the back window and I can see what's going on, it's like, whoa, what the heck's going on here? And I see these guys are already proned out. The 2 inmates, they're proned out. The officers, they're kind of the ones who got assaulted. They're kind of breaking away. And at this point, I can't really see much of the blood on one officer, but I see it on the other. And officers are I can see that they're already running towards the site. But at this point, when I look out there, there's no assault. There's nothing going on that's continuing. everything's pretty much stopped. I'm like, so, once all the other responding, staff members that, that are on foot, they pretty much just place the 2 inmates in handcuffs, and they I think they walk them to another building, and they were questioned. Those inmates were questioned there, and then in another building. But meanwhile, these 2 staff members are, they're in shock, and they're bleeding, and they got scratched in the head. They got sliced in the head, I should say, with some kind of sharp device. So they're, at this point, they're definitely bleeding a lot.
Right, especially from the head. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of blood. So that was a huge eye opener. 5 weeks into the fresh on the job.
Oh, I can
and
imagine.
At that point, you don't really know much. You're just learning as you go, somewhat. But it was a very intense moment, and I remember I felt guilty afterwards. One of the lieutenant or the sergeant on duty at that point, he relieved me to ask me if I saw anything. And then, so somebody relieved me, a staff member relieved me. I came down from my gun post, went to the sergeant's office. He asked me, what did I see? What did I observe? Blah, blah, blah. So I told him. He said, okay, I'm going to need a report from you. So, yeah, no problem. So I generated my report then and there. And then I remember one of the senior staff members there, I remember talking to him, and I kind of, I kind of just felt guilty, like I should have done something, or is there something I could have done? You felt bad because you see these partners that, they're victims. And I talked to one of the senior staff members, and he said, "No, man, you couldn't have done anything." He said, he said he was on the yard at the time, and he said when he looked and he saw what was going on, the guys were already like, en route to like falling down on the floor. These 2 inmates, they were en route to like proning out and submitting.
So they knew what to do not to get shot.
Yes, exactly. They did it so quickly that they just did it. They knew they did some damage. They struck, and then boom, they bowed down like cowards, pretty much, and they just got there on the floor and let themselves be handcuffed, and that was it.
Man, I can't imagine that, Miguel.
It was a nasty situation for these guys, and 2 real good people. I mean, good staff members, good people, good officers. And they're just firm guys and fair officers, and it sucked to see them in that position.
And, and how long were you on the job at this point?
Just 5 weeks.
Oh my God.
5 weeks.
I mean, yeah, just to think of you like on that perch, you're in a gun position. I know with prisons they tightly regulate what officers have guns, so obviously they're not going to put them in the population, right? You have to be out of it, kind of higher in an elevated position.
Exactly, yeah.
So you can't get down there anyways. You have this gun. And then that little time on the job, you're supposed to be able to interpret what's going on down there and if you should or should not act.
Yeah.
Thank God it was so clear. I mean, imagine if they were still interacting.
Yes.
And the officers are injured, then you're like, wait, do I take this guy out?
Yeah, more damage. These guys would have more damage, and
damn.
By the time I get on site with my Mini 14, and you these scenarios play in your mind, because it's a matter of good training to make you a better officer to respond to these kind of situations. So you have to have these scenarios that run through your mind. What would you do? What would you do? And I thought about that. I would have put out the Mini 14, and I would have got my sights there. These guys are fighting. These guys probably would have been, fighting and tussling and moving and this and that. And that would be a nasty situation if I would have, pulled that trigger and, there's some movement and I struck my partner. That oh my God, that's a terrible scenario to think about, but it's a reality. Yeah, it's a reality. So sometimes in situations like that, you don't have a shot. So you don't have a shot, you don't take it. And that's one of the things that's, highly stressed upon, correctional officers and officers in general. If you don't have a shot, you just don't take it.
Sure.
So that applies to any and every peace officer in the state that carries.
Damn, that's like baptism by fire right there, my man.
Oh man, yeah, that was crazy. That was a crazy one. Yeah. And In the institution, there were many incidences. I have many incidents that were just adrenaline rushes, from cell extractions to riots on the yard. There's just so many that go on in there and that I've experienced. So it's a lot of it's a volatile situation. The tension is thick, and the tension is thick your whole shift. As soon as you walk into that prison, the tension, you feel it. And it's a matter of there's 100, 200 inmates on a yard. You feel the tension, like something could just pop off at any moment, and you're always on your toes. You're always ready. You never know.
Oh, of course.
So,
Man, yeah, you're surrounded.
Yeah,
absolutely. Man, that
absolutely.
Is crazy.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Miguel, can you tell us about like your strangest or most bizarre thing that you dealt with in the prisons, or just on the job in general?
Not so much in the prisons. I would say in parole, I probably had the strangest, or most bizarre kind of experiences.
Okay.
Kind of humorous at the same time. Let's see. In parole, I was about, I don't know, I was a parole agent at this point, probably about 3 years in. I had just started a new caseload where I was supervising sex offenders. And I want to say it was my first official day in that position, and on that assignment. And I had my first inmate who came into the office. He just paroled, I guess, a day or two prior. And he's in the lobby, so I have his file, and it's my, I'm brand spanking new with the caseload. So that's a completely different beast.
So at this point, you've graduated from the prisons, and you're a parole agent. So totally different job.
Exactly. Yeah. Now from keeping them indoors and maintaining safety and security of the institution to supervising them on the streets and making sure, of course, the emphasis is the protection of the community.
Sure.
But yeah, now it's supervising them in the community. So yeah, as a parole agent, I ended up, what was it? I walked to the lobby, and I have to meet the parolee for the first time. So they come into the office, they're in the lobby. I come out to kind of like a meeting. I call them in. It's in like an initial interview. This is what parole agents call when they first meet their parolee. It's an initial interview where we go over all the conditions of parole. We take their pictures. We go over their tattoos. We go over their special conditions of parole, what they can, what they cannot do, just the whole gamut. And that can take about an hour to 2 hours on one particular parolee. But anyway, I go to the lobby and call out the parolee's name, and I yell out his name. I should say I didn't yell it out, but I say it firmly and strong, his name. And so he moved. He kind of raised his hand. He starts to stand up, but he's kind of like, as he's standing, he's kind of like, I don't know, it's very staggered. And then he starts to kind of like give. I don't know what the heck was going on. The lobby is full at this point. There's probably 20 to 30 parolees in there. And anyway, this guy starts to stand up. He just kind of like falls down forward, like on his left side of his body, on his left side of his shoulder. And then I look on the floor. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And what happened was, this particular parolee, he ended up having like a stroke.
Oh, wow.
Partial stroke. Yeah. And he defecated on himself.
Oh, geez.
So he defecated on himself, and you can see it on the floor now. It's running on the floor. I'm like, I didn't know what the heck was going on or how to handle this. I was like, what? I'm telling him, are you okay?
Yeah.
He's not able to speak. So I'm looking at him. And so I remember, I think I motioned to our clerical staff, our free staff, who was like, and there's a window right there. So I motioned to the clerical staff, a female, and I, with my hand, I gestured, call 911.
Yeah.
And then, so I could see her doing that. She looked out to the window to see what was going on. She got on the phone. So I assumed she was calling 911, and I didn't get too close to him. I mean, there's shit on the floor. I mean, there's a lot of shit. And now it's starting to reek. I mean, it's strong.
Yeah.
And there's still these 20, 30 parolees are still in there. They're like, what the heck? They're like, these guys got no filter. So these guys are talking crap.
Sure.
They were talking crap. So I said, hey, you guys need to get out. By this time, I got some support staff that kind of come up front to help me out. I guess somebody called for assistance in the front lobby.
How old is this guy, Miguel?
He was, I want to say, between 45 and 55.
So you wouldn't even think stroke at this point with a guy that young.
Not at all. Not at all. He didn't seem like he was in bad health. I mean, he didn't seem like he was in bad health. He wasn't an old guy, but it's just a surprising situation that happened. And so what ended up happening was, we had the paramedics coming to get him. They transported him. And then what is it? Then we had the whole building had to be shut down. And this was about, I don't know, 10:30, 11 in the morning. So we had to shut down the building. We had to have like a hazmat team come there, clean everything up.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a short day for everybody else, but because everybody got to, call it a day. But that was pretty much it. And the reason I bring it up as being humorous is because my partners, they were just joking around as far as saying, yeah, first day on the job and you scared the shit out of these guys, off the bat. Like, no. So, that's the kind of humor that the job kind of, leaves you not leaves you jaded, but it's just part of it. You have to find some kind of humor.
Part of coping. Yeah,
part of coping and part of dealing with some of the crazy situations, real life situations that you kind of encounter. And those are things that you kind of don't expect to happen when you gear up and you get to the office, you get your day started, but it's just one of those things that was very bizarre, crazy. It doesn't happen every day.
People would never realize a parole agent would have to deal with that. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just one of those things. You think it's just a custody issues and dealing with, parolees and cuffing them up and transporting them and office work, and you don't really expect that kind of stuff to happen. So, I look back at it and it does make me laugh because it was a crazy situation. Long story short, this parolee, I supervised him for like the remainder of the year or 2 years, I think.
And he was okay.
He was okay. He was a model parolee, if you want to call it that. Never any violations. He never used any drugs all the time. We were testing him every month. None of that stuff. No violations. We had him on a GPS device on his ankle. So he wasn't in a park or school where he shouldn't be. So he was following all his conditions of parole. No issues with him ever. The stroke really didn't leave him any permanent damage.
It's like a TIA or something minor.
It was something minor. I mean, it was nothing that, because I've had conversations with him about it, but afterwards, of course, and and then we established a rapport with each other, and all that time, he stated to me that he never, he doesn't have any loss of function on any part of his, and nothing neurological and none of that stuff. So so it was just one of those things that, I don't know, his body shut down and he was scared, intimidated by coming to the parole office and,
sure.
and being on parole, and knowing he's a sex offender, he's going to have an ankle monitor, a bracelet on his ankle, so it's probably overwhelmed him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a great, that illustrates just some of the bizarre things that no one would think about in law enforcement that you have to deal with. And I had calls back where I worked where there's times when people need your help and they have shit all over them. Yeah. And there you are. That's your job sometimes. It's crazy. That is definitely a bizarre story. Well, you're saying he's off parole now, and do you know if he's been a good boy or?
This one, when I know he had discharged by the time, because I had him for about 2 years, and then I left that caseload, and he was still on parole. I want to say he successfully discharged, and he did about 3 years on his full parole status. Yeah, from my understanding, he had no violations, no nothing. So, that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, especially with those kind of offenses. Yikes.
Yeah.
Well, that is certainly a bizarre dealing with, my man. Okay, getting to the end of our questions here, but Miguel, could you tell us about the your most intense or terrifying, crazy call that you were involved in as a parole agent?
Sure. Craziest is in 2012. I was part of a specialized fugitive task force for the state of California. It was the California Parole Apprehension Team, and pretty much our job.
Sounds like a bunch of badasses.
It was a really nice gig. I loved it. This particular assignment, it was great. It was high end. I mean, it was just high speed, everything. It was great. I loved it. It's just pretty much a fugitive task force team for the state, and you're just chasing fugitives, trying to locate them, trying to utilize all the departmental databases that you can, and of course surveillance. So anyway, January 4th, two of my partners and I we tagged along with a Los Angeles Sheriff's Department task force team, and we tagged along with them because they targeted one particular parolee who I guess knew a fugitive that I was looking for. So our role was this particular day was to tag along with LASD. Once they made entry and they're doing their search, I was going to interview this particular parolee. So we did. Interviewed him, and they also targeted a house that was about 4 or 5 houses away. And when they hit the houses, they hit them simultaneously. So I talked to the parolee from, I guess, location A. After I got all the intel and information from that particular parolee, I walked over down the street, talked to a probationer who was the target of that location, interviewed him, and the intel I got was pretty much the same. So I felt pretty confident with that, I guess, because they had no time to contact each other or, pass information. So I had all the info I think I could get at this point about my particular fugitive, who I knew both of these guys knew. So we ended up, my partner had the idea of, why don't we just go to the trailer where our fugitive is known to his girlfriend. This is his girlfriend's trailer. So we went along, my partners and I, and 2 LASD sheriff deputies. So now this is pretty much our location. So my partners and I made entry into the property, knocked on the trailer while LASD had the front of the residence, and it was a huge, weird location.
Is this like a trailer park?
Yeah, it was a trailer, but it was actually on a huge, probably half an acre lot.
Okay.
In Lakeview Terrace.
And what is this guy? What has this guy done? What's his MO?
Okay, this guy was a second striker. I want to say he had 2 robberies. I think he had 2 previous robberies, so he was a second striker. A second striker is one who has is just that. He has 2 felony counts for violent offenses. Commitment offenses.
Gotcha.
So he's committed 2 violent criminal acts, convicted of both. So he's called a second striker. This particular parolee or fugitive, he was on the run for about 6-7 months.
Wow.
So we're trying to find him. Anyway, we make to the door. We knock on the door. We identify ourselves, state parole. We knock on the door. She opens the door. And what was it? She comes out, and she's like wearing like a bra. We asked her to go back in, put on the shirt. She goes back in with the door open, and she comes out with the shirt. When she comes out, she kind of walks away from us from the front door, and she walks about maybe 12 feet away. So we kind of, I get her attention. Hey, let me, I don't want to say her name, but we call her name and we talk to her, and I'm talking to her while my partners kind of have somewhat of the perimeter, and they're just kind of looking out. And so pretty much what I'm asking her is if we can go in there, if we can search the place, because we're looking for such and such, this particular fugitive. She said, "Oh no, I haven't seen him. I don't know where he is." Okay, all right. Well, do you mind if we go inside? And we have to ask for that, for her cooperation,
sure,
to to go in there. So she gives us permission. We go in, we search, and it was a small trailer, but mind you, it was like clutter everywhere. I don't think I saw one piece of the wall, because there was posters everywhere, pictures. I mean, it was pretty much
It's like hoarders.
Oh yeah, these are hoarders. They're both meth heads.
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
drug
Yeah.
fiends. I mean, so you can imagine. I mean, it's just dirty as hell, dirty,
Yeah.
nasty. I mean, oh my God, it was filthy, but it was just everything was in there. It was full. So my partner and I are searching the trailer as best we can, and we're looking for like mail. Obviously, we don't see a body in there, but we're looking for mail, some kind of correspondence to show that there's some communication going on between our fugitive and this particular female, and an address.
Okay.
So we're searching. We're I don't know, maybe a minute, 2 minutes in, and I guess I get to a point where I'm at the end of a trailer on a corner. And as I'm walking up closer to it, and mind you, our weapons are drawn at this time.
Okay.
So I have my weapon drawn, and I kind of get to a spot where I know I'm at the corner, but it looks like it's like a bed, but it's so much clutter in there that I'm second guessing myself. Is this an actual bed? Because there's stuff everywhere. Even the bed. I mean, the bed, you couldn't even tell it was a bed because there's backpacks. There's all kinds of crap on there. Anyway, as I get, I stop, and I'm looking down, like, oh shit. So I'm looking down, I see some sheets, shit everywhere. And with my left index finger, my right hand, I'm holding my weapon, left index finger, I reach down and I kind of tap or to move what's the sheets. And as I do that with my left index finger, whatever I'm touching gives. And that was like the scariest, most terrifying moment I've ever had in my life, because as soon as that gave, I knew that was a knee, and I knew shit was not going to be good.
You knew you were touching the human body.
I knew I was touching the human body because it reacted like a human body. And then once I touched it, I realized I was touching the knee. And mind you, it's going everything is going slow motion. From the time I'm reaching, my index finger to the time it finally moved, and there's movement. I mean, it was this super duper slow motion.
Sure.
So as it gave with my left, now I just quickly, left hand is now back on the weapon. So now I have two hands on the weapon, and I start to and I yelled, "Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands!" But as I'm doing this, I'm backing up.
Right. Make a little space.
Safety and distance. And so I'm doing that. And then as I'm yelling, I want to say off right after I said it the second time, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." Pop. I heard a pop. And that's where I was shot in the face.
Whoa.
And the bullet was, now mind you, my partner is we're touching shoulders.
Okay.
We're tactical entry. We're still, he's looking exactly what I'm looking at, because I can see. I didn't tell him what I was going to do, but I know body language and our experience together. He knew what I was doing, and anyway, he saw what I was doing. "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." Twice. I heard the pop, and after I heard the pop, I just remember covering my face. What did I know? I had my hand on the weapon, and then I turned because I knew I got shot. And I guess my reaction was, "Oh shit," because when my partner from outside, he told me he heard me say, "Oh shit." So I ended up turning around. As I turned around, my partner lost his balance because we were shoulder to shoulder. As I turned around, so my partner's not falling back.
So you're hitting the face. You're spinning to protect your face, cover your face, whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, and at this point, I'm like, I was backing up already anyway for the distance and safety. So my partner and I, I swing to my left, knocked him off balance. What the parole ended up doing, he shot me with one weapon. He actually had two weapons under the blanket after the investigation and everything and trial and all. The one in his left hand malfunctioned. He struck that pin a bunch of times.
Wow.
The one that he was holding with his right hand, he hit me. After he shot me, he pointed to my partner, tried to shoot my partner, but the round went up in the roof. He was going back a little bit, and he was kind of going off balance and kind of falling backwards. So now I'm egressing. I'm booking it. I'm trying to run out of that trailer.
Right.
And my partner, he ends up as he's coming out, he ends up returning fire. So we're both running out at the same time. Of course, I'm in front. My partner's behind me, but I know he's running behind me. He's shooting. I hear a bunch of gunfire. Boom, we're both out of there. And we both make it to safety. I make it to my other partner who's waiting outside. He heard the gunfire, and he didn't know where it was coming from, because this place was like, it was a weird rural part of Lakeview Terrace, and it was a lot of space. So he wasn't too sure where the rounds are coming from. So he was like on his stomach. So when we ran out of that trailer, I saw him. I said, "Get up! They're shooting!" So boom, he gets up. So we all run out. We all make it to the sidewalk, and my one partner who was outside, he's assessing me. I tell him, "Mike, I'm hit," and he's assessing me to make sure the round didn't go outside of my back of my head.
Right.
And so he's assessing me. He's walking around. He's checking for me, and then he kind of does a medical check on my other partner that was in the trailer with me. He has him take off his vest, this and that. So at this point, my partner returned, got him about 6 times, shot him about 6 times.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you got him like 6 times when you guys were going for cover.
Yes. And then I want to say within 30 seconds, helicopter was in the air. I mean, it was so quick. I mean, the response time was absolutely incredible. I've never seen anything like that. So anyway, I ended up getting put in an ambulance. Didn't lose consciousness.
Oh, they put you in an ambulance when you get shot in the face? That's, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't drive your...
Yeah.
Damn, man. I can't believe that you got shot in the face. What did he shoot you with? What kind of gun?
It was a 22 Ruger.
Really?
Luckily, it was just a 22.
Still, 22 is taking a lot of lives.
Yeah, and they move a lot. So luckily, this round it took out 2 molars, and then it got embedded. By the time it hit my cheek, on the inside of my cheek, it was embedded like a pancake. So much that the surgeon actually couldn't find it the first time. He had to do an additional scan.
Really?
He didn't know where the round was. He didn't see an exit wound, or the remaining lead. So he ended up removing it. It had to do a lot of reconstructive surgery that day, and of course a lot of follow up. But yeah, that was an extremely terrifying situation. Of course, it's
it must be surreal to get shot in the face and then be like, I'm living through this. You know what I mean? You figure you take a bullet to your head almost anywhere, you figure you're done, but here you are holding your face, conscious, and I'm sure just blood everywhere, but man, that's insane.
It was it's a quarter of an inch more. I mean, just a quarter of an inch more, the bullet would have gone down my throat. Because like I said, at this point I'm yelling, my mouth is open, and the bullet, went from the front of my, right below the left side of my lip, probably about a quarter of an inch down. The bullet, that was the entry wound, and hit the two molars, embedded in the cheek. So no, I'm extremely fortunate to be alive, to live through that, and it was extremely crazy situation, and with that, I think the most overwhelming emotion that I felt with everything that I experienced, from getting shot till all the rehab and all the reconstructive surgeries, and going through all that frustration of surgeries and procedures and workers' compensation and all that, the most overwhelming impact has been the reaction and the response from not just my own administrators and staff members and own agency, but from, just all the agencies that were there and were there for support. And I mean, that to me, it still affects me emotionally because as a peace officer, you deal with victims all day, and you're trying to protect those victims, people from becoming victims. And for yourself to be a victim is something that I never, ever, 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 ever wanted to be part of.
Right.
And that's difficult for me to to undertake because here I am, and I had no way of controlling that. I didn't know somebody was hiding under that blanket, waiting with a gun, to shoot me and kill me, But the overwhelming part is just the amount of support from law enforcement, my own staff members, my own seeing their response and how it affected them. Of course, my family. That's seeing how it affected them. But yeah, it's a very intense situation that encompasses a lot of emotion and a lot of thought. So,
Man, it must have given
but
you some real perspective on life, right?
yeah, it's it's things like that. You only get a second chance. You can't. You have to have a good perspective on stuff, and I know it has changed me for the better. I mean, and I was not a bad person before that. I wasn't a jerk. I wasn't, I didn't treat people unfairly or rudely or unprofessionally. I gave everybody the respect they had due and whatever they had coming. But it's affected me in a positive way of family and the importance of life and just trying to cherish every moment and live life to the fullest, So a lot of good lessons there.
Yeah,
A lot of
absolutely,
good
man.
lessons.
That's a great perspective to have. Now, I got to ask you, did you have a personal relationship with this parolee? Was he your guy? Like, did you meet with him and keep an eye on him for a while? Or
Never. Yeah, never. I never.
okay, so he wasn't your guy.
Exactly. Yeah. I went, by the time I got his case, he had already been a fugitive, maybe about, I want to say 2 months. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I had his case. And then by the time I actually got to working his particular case and file, 2 months went by. So, anyway, he was a fugitive for about 6 months. I had never met him. He had never met me. We have never, no interaction whatsoever.
Okay, so
So it would
gotcha.
it would have it would have been different if I think it was somebody a parolee that I had supervised, because I mean it's a matter of respect. And if
Yeah, it'd be a real
I
betrayal, right? You'd feel that.
yeah, because I mean I've had parolees where I've told them, look, if you test positive for cocaine one more time, or if you test positive for cocaine one more time, I'm going to arrest you. You understand that? Yes. And they appreciate that because you're showing the respect of the honesty.
Right,
So that time comes and you have to, hey, turn around and cuff up. Okay, they know they had it coming, so they're not surprised by it.
right.
So you build that rapport of honesty with the person, and that goes a long way. So I mean, I'm not saying I trusted my parolees, but I wouldn't expect that behavior from somebody that I supervised,
Right.
that knew me and I had a relationship with, or a rapport with, I should say.
That is a crazy story. Well, thank God. God was looking out for you that day, my man. You're
Oh
still here
man,
with
yeah,
us.
in the best way.
I got one more question for you. I'll let you go.
Sure.
I don't want to
No,
keep you
no.
for too long. I appreciate you being here. In today's day and age, people are getting into law enforcement, getting into the prisons. What would you give the new recruit? What would you say to him for a piece of advice or word of wisdom?
I would say the job is not going to change you in the negative. The job will not change you in a negative way. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I can speak on like my own personal experience and where I started, where I was mentally, maturity level wise, but when I became a peace officer, to when I finished, and how I saw my growth mentally, maturity wise, and just in life situations, and then in really volatile, hostile situations that you have to think on the fly. I've seen that growth. I would say just you're going to be the same person who you are, but you're going to be more vigilant, and you're going to be sharper. You're going to be more aware of your surroundings, of what's going on around you, in front of you. I think it's going to be a great growth factor from a new recruit, brand new, green, doesn't really know much what's going on besides the basic fundamental training that you get at the academy. But when you're actually on the job, that's where you're going to learn 95, 99% of the job. The job is not going to change you. It's going to make you into a better person, a more conscientious person.
So they shouldn't be afraid of that, because some people say that the job is, that's a thing people say. Job is going to change you. You'll be a different person. They shouldn't be afraid of that.
Exactly. Don't be afraid of that at all. It's going to be, it's for the better. It's for the greater good, because it's all about growth. It's all about growth.
Awesome,
man.
That will come. Man, thank you so much for coming on, Miguel, and sharing those experiences. Those were intense. And I know you personally. We work together. And I feel like I know you so much more now hearing those stories. And wow, man. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, Steve, to have the forum, and and I hope listeners from several of your interviewees, so much to take in and different perspectives, and there a lot of good insight, and I'm sure you have a lot of great insight from a lot of well-rounded, experienced officers that have been there, done that, and have seen it and done it all. So I know I haven't seen it and done it all, but I've done some, and
you've done enough. Believe me.
Oh, good.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
All right. No problem, Steve. Thank you very much.